Hi, Jim.
Howdy.
Hi, Jim. Two Jims.
Good evening.
Hey, Melody. Hi, AJ.
Hi, all.
Hello.
AJ, I have a hard stop tonight at 8:30, just FYI.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is George back from his trip? Do we know? Is he joining tonight?
I don't think so. It seems to me he said that it would be November 3rd,
Okay,
October 3rd through November 3rd.
okay.
He may still be stranded on a glacier.
Yeah,
near
who
Mount
knows,
Everest.
right?
Yeah.
Right. And then I think we'll give Bob a minute, right? Because is anybody expecting
Oh, but,
Bob to be up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's going to be around.
All right, so let's just give him a minute.
George chose a unusually dangerous route, which I happen to know personally. I just hope there weren't the late season monsoon, which has been affecting weather in Nepal, didn't dump a lot of snow in the mountains. Otherwise, he could have been in real trouble. Well, we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Well, the personnel board got an email from him and a couple of photos about a week ago,
Oh,
maybe
really?
10 days ago. Yeah. Because Peg reached out to him and about, sorry, you're missing our meeting. And he emailed her back.
That's-
Said, not,
Amazing that he's got like the capability to send emails and photos from.
Well, he's at least at lower elevations. He's going through a part of Nepal that is well wired for tourists. So why, in fact, there are lodges that offer Wi-Fi coverage and God knows what else. So it's changed a bit since I've been there, at least.
Got it.
Hmm.
Now, he isn't like actually summiting Everest, is he?
No, he's no. He's going to a mountaintop called Gokyo Ri,
Okay.
which is 17,200, which gives the best view of Everest from the southwest.
I see.
But he's also continuing further north and crossing a glacier to take an alternate route back to Namche Bazaar, which is sort of the central point for that whole region. And that's the dangerous part, I think, because usually people this time of year avoid that route because of possible snowfall and glaciers and avalanches and God knows what else. So I'm sure he'll have some good stories to tell when he gets back,
I can't
or
wait to hear.
if he gets back.
He's going to get that. Yeah. Well, I think we should probably start.
do you want, I'll give Bob a call while you guys start.
Oh yeah, if you wouldn't mind, that'd be great. All right, so why don't we start with taking a look at minutes from October 4th. All right, did anybody have any questions or requests for edits?
Well, I know that Bob had a lot to say about the minutes, so maybe it would be good to wait for him,
Okay.
or had some things to say about the minutes.
Hmm.
And
Well, while we're waiting for him, anybody else have? Yeah.
So Bob is trying to get in. He's having trouble. He's about to switch to his iPad. So
Okay,
he will get in one way or the other.
okay,
oh,
all right. All right. So I take it no one else had any questions or comments about the minutes?
Yep, I wasn't at that last meeting, so
Okay.
no questions or comments from me.
All right, and I think. Right, Melody, you were not at the last.
I
one,
was
too,
not,
so,
I will
yeah,
have to abstain
That
also.
would basically be Jim and And then we'll see if Bob has some comments.
AJ, I got your email about accessing the folder, but
Yeah.
it said I needed to ask you for permission or something. I'm not sure what it said.
Okay. That probably means I'll get. Okay, yeah.
You might be sharing it at this meeting, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I see the email asking to verify. So I just granted you permission, so you should
I
be.
see that. Okay,
should
let's
realize
see.
it.
Where did it go? Did it go here? Yes.
All right.
Okay. Yep.
So
Here.
just on that note, folks, I just minutes ago, I shared access to a Google Drive. I had offered at our last meeting to just manage a drive that we could use to share, but department budget documents. So you've all been granted access to that. It sounds like, given what just happened with Susie, you may have to, there may be an extra step involved of me basically confirming that you can utilize it. So, hey, Bob. All right. So I can see you, but I can't hear you. So you think you're muted.
Okay, now?
Yep. You can hear you fine.
Okay.
All right. Bob, we were just looking at minutes, and Jim thought you might have a couple questions or comments about them. So if you have a chance to pull yours up now.
Yeah, I did print them and was looking at them.
Okay.
I don't know how other members feel, but I did actually do a little reading of minutes on the town website and looked at other committees and their minutes. And I think it's pretty universal that there is attribution and there's a kind of a bare bones description of discussions that committee members at different venues undergo, so that the person reading the minutes doesn't get obviously a transcript of it, but gets an idea of, for example, if we had a discussion about school choice, which we did the last meeting, that one member might make a point and another member might counter the point or make a different argument. And that information, I think, should be in the minutes. And I don't think, I can't see it there. What I see is a synopsis by, Susie, who does a good job writing them clearly, but it's basically on the school choice issue. It's just her conclusion about what in essence was a consensus or view. There's not any indication of what the nature of the discussion was. So,
Bob, which one are you referring to, or are you referring to all of this?
I'm using the minutes, the discussion of
the school committee.
the school choice, which I
It's
think
under
is
under school committee?
Yes. And, it says here that Jackie Mendoza has developed a rubric when considering spending school choice funds. And then it's described what her rubric is, her process. And, when Susie and I discussed this, Susie recommended or suggested that I talk to Dan Hayes. And we can talk about that later, but essentially, that's not in the discussion. That's not it. That's not that fact, or that essence of the discussion we had in our committee is not present in these minutes. I really think we have to have more an accounting of what kind of, when we have an issue that's raised on our agenda or on our meeting, that the essence of what happened, what people said, and that person should be attributed, whether it be Susie or me or AJ or whoever, should be AJ says this, Bob says this, Susie says this. No vote was had or whatever, then I'll move on to the next thing. But with this particular set of minutes, I don't feel that you're getting a sense of what happened. That's my that's my take. And I could go through other details in the minutes. I didn't want to send anything out because, obviously open meeting law, I thought maybe that would violate those standards, but, again, we had a pretty detailed discussion about school choice, and that's not represented in these minutes. And I think it's because of the way Susie, all due respect, she said that the way she likes to do the minutes is to not attribute what one person said or another person said, but just to give a kind of a concise description of what happened. But I think that the other committees actually do it in the way that we understand is sort of practical, which is Jim Walton says this, AJ says that, Susie says this, and I think that's more appropriate for minutes than what I see here.
Susie, do you want to kind of reiterate the point you made on this?
Yeah, there were a couple people not at the last meeting. This was brought up. I don't do attributions. I've been in committees where the attributions become an incredible point of contention. I'm not going back to do a transcript. I try to use the minutes to reflect that our committee is discussing things. And I try to reflect that there was a discussion. And that is I have done minutes for other committees and I don't do attribution. So I think people need to weigh in on whether they want it to be attributions, but if it is, then somebody else may want to do the minutes.
So I think there's sort of two different points you raised, Bob. I mean, one was about whether the minutes fully capture the content of the discussion of particular item. And I think on that front, as somebody who, spent a couple of years doing minutes for the meeting, it's inevitable that, right, stuff's going to get left out. It's not a verbatim transcript. And so that's why when we discuss minutes at our meetings, if somebody thinks there's a critical or vital piece of information that was discussed at the meeting that's not reflected, then kind of that's their chance to say, hey, this was a point that was raised. It seems important. And so I think that's perfectly good way to deal with that. And then, so I think the attribution issue is sort of a separate issue from that. And I mean, I think from my vantage point, it's like, we have to respect the process of the person that's volunteered to do the work. And so I think if somebody feels super strongly that that's an essential part of the minutes, then I think it kind of onus is on them to sort of make a motion, and I think along with that kind of volunteer, if that motion were to pass, to take over that role. So I don't know, that seems to me to be the kind of fair way to address that. Others have an opinion?
I just think, I've been involved with either taking minutes or in meetings that include minutes, and I just don't recall being in an environment where anybody that says anything has to be captured and assigned to that individual. From my perspective, minutes are the importance of minutes are more about if we come to a decision on something, making sure we capture decisions, make sure we capture the different elements of what we cover, the topics that were covered, and the key outcome from each of those discussions. But trying to capture everything that everybody says and saying, okay, Jim said this and Bob said that, to me that's way too granular for minutes, for purposes of minutes. So we have minutes here that it's 2 full pages of minutes here, which I think is probably pretty average, pretty typical for our meetings, is to have 2 pages of minutes. But I think what we're proposing here is capturing the level of detail of what everybody says would require a lot more than 2 pages. Yeah, and I'm sorry. I'm done.
Did you have a follow-up? No.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, first of all, don't misunderstand me. I'm not at all suggesting that we should have every detail of our meeting or a discussion. I never said that. I don't, if that came across, it's not what I was meaning to say. I'm just looking at this example of part 6 school committee meeting, Susie's presentation of that issue. This is an ongoing issue that we have discussed in this committee for like at least 3 years since school choice started to be utilized by our school. And I've been involved in those discussions, and I've done quite a bit of work on it. We had a discussion, this essentially a kind of a discussion that would anticipate what's going to be happening this year with our budget process. So I think it's good for us to discuss it. And if you read these minutes, you wouldn't know we had the discussion, really. What we see here is a long half page about, that's basically a synopsis of what Jackie Mendoza says for her rubric, and not
but it was
about
a
our discussion.
I mean, it was a school committee report. I mean, the whole point of this item was for Susie to relay information that was, that came out of a school committee meeting that she.
I understand that. I'm not objecting to it being there. I'm saying that the discussion that we had is not represented in the minutes. That's what concerns me, AJ.
Yeah, no, I get it. And so I think what I was trying to say is that this happens from time to time. Certainly when I was taking minutes, there was times where I dropped, there was, somebody made a point and it's not reflected. And so this is what we use this agenda item for in our meetings. It's for people, if they feel like something was communicated or said during a particular discussion that's been left out of the minutes, and they think it's a critical piece of information to communicate to the town, then this is your opportunity to say, hey, my memory is that we discussed A, B, and C. Can we add that to the minutes here? And then I think the practice has always been, if people generally recall, oh yeah, I remember that was said, and so then that gets added at this point. But I think that's the purpose of discussing minutes as an agenda item, right? So if you feel like there was some point made that you specifically made or somebody else made that's not reflected here in the minutes, I think this is your chance to let us know what that was, and then we can see about adding it.
Well, I hope I made that clear by what I just said. I don't know if you want me to repeat myself, but
So do you want to offer an addition to the minutes?
Yeah.
I'd say that we had discussion about how school choice money should be dealt with in the school budget. And I don't know how granular you want to be about the different ways that could be done, that could be described. But, my position is that school choice money is revenue and should be considered as part of our budgeting evaluation as something which has a determination how much we recommend to provide. That is, the argument has been made many times that we have no right to interfere with how the school spends the school choice money. That's their discretion according to the law. I don't deny that. I don't contest that. We don't have any actual right to tell the school how to spend any money. We tell them how much money we recommend town meeting provide to them.
So Bob, you didn't say all that at the meeting.
Yeah.
You have
Okay.
thought about that and you've mentioned it many times, but at the meeting that it didn't go that way.
Yeah,
This
at
is
meeting I
minutes of
said
that
I
meeting.
wanted
So
to.
do you want to have so I'm thinking you want to say there was a discussion about how school choice money should be utilized in the budget.
And how it should be represented in the budget and how it should be considered as part of the budgeting process.
All right. So for those members who were at the meeting, does anybody have a concern about adding that sentence to the minutes? I don't. Okay, Susie, is that doable? Yeah, is that,
Yeah, I'm gonna add how school choice money should be utilized in this budget and be considered as part of the budgeting process. So I'll say in our discussion, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
That's
Great.
it. Mhm.
Bob?
One other small thing, Susie, maybe somebody already mentioned this, but on number 3, Gale Engineering is the name of the engineering company, not Dale.
Oh, we didn't get that far.
Okay.
Okay, number 3, Gale. Is it G-A-L-E?
Gale.
Okay.
Right. All right. All right, any other comments? Jim?
As for the attribution issue, which Bob brought up, I think an occasional attribution is fine. After all, AJ, your minutes were rich with attributions, as I recall. You used initials to do it. And so, for example, this discussion we just had, Susie, I would definitely say, and Bob said, put that in there, because Bob really was the one who brought it up, and we spent, how many minutes, 10 to 15 minutes on this. So maybe that's an opportunity for attribution to be.
So Jim, you're not hearing me. I don't believe attributions are a good path. I've had trouble with it. So I have a perspective, and if it's not a perspective that works for a majority of the people, then we can say that and somebody else can do the minutes, but I am not doing attributions. I have a problem with it. I've seen it as a problem, and I'm not going to do it. I feel like we have discussions as a committee, and that's what I can reflect. If I miss a piece of the discussion, like we just gone through, I'll put that in, but I'm not doing attribution.
And just to be clear, Susie, I think we mentioned at our last meeting that the exception to that would be
Yes.
an outside guest.
Exactly, right.
right.
They're not our committee, so
Right.
we would
If a
attribute outside guests.
Right. If a non-committee member makes a contribution, that'll get attributed.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I mean, I think I think I made my position clear. That's like each, whoever's taking minutes has got a style and approach, and and I think that has to be respected. And if a majority of members have a fundamental problem with that approach, then I think the onus is on one of those members to both volunteer and make a motion to make a change in that role. So somebody can do that now, or you guys can think about it if you want to. You can discuss it at another meeting. But I think for now we're probably ready to vote on approval of these minutes, unless there's another edit or correction or question. Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes from October 4th as amended.
Second.
Chartier abstain.
So let's do our roll call vote. So that's, so missing George says Chartier. Okay. Next
Groves.
up,
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Alternate, I'm sorry, Susie. I was so excited to get my abstain in there.
All right. So I think that was
4-2.
4 to
Abstain.
2 abstentions. Yeah.
Mhm.
Great. Thanks, Susie.
Yep.
Okay, next up, update on budget requests. So I think, was it yesterday was our deadline, Becky, for departments to respond with their budget forms? I know they tend to trickle in. So can you give us an update on kind of where we are?
I think I have about half a dozen.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind forwarding those to me, I was mentioning at the
good.
beginning of the meeting to some that we've got a Google Drive now where we're gonna one of the things I think we'll utilize that for is to share those budget documents. If you don't, I volunteer to manage that. So if you, Becky, if you're comfortable just forwarding those to me, I'll make sure they get in there. I think we should probably just remind everyone about kind of who's up first and when that's happening. So I'm going to just, if you bear with me a second, I'm going to pull up our calendar. All right, so we've got highway and police on November 15th. Becky, do you happen to recall if those two departments are
I've
in
had
the,
conversations with both of them and I should have them shortly.
okay, got it. Just one note on highway. I did get a message from Tim. And I'm going to pull that up right now. Just alerting me. I'm going to just read it to you all. This was sent on October 19th. Good morning. I thought I should give you a heads up on our machinery maintenance line. We've had a number of expensive repairs since July, and I estimate that account will have about $11,000 left when I pay the next round of bills. Winter is usually an expensive time for repairs as we are running the trucks almost daily. So I thought I should mention this. Thanks. So I think this is the kind of thing I think in our discussion about kind of what unfolded with the fire department last year is that, you know, we sort of had asked, I think Becky, I think you may have sort of emphasized the departments that if they had this kind of a concern about being on a trajectory towards overspending or exceeding their budget for a particular line, that they should notify us in advance. So I'm happy that that seems like it's happening in the case of highway, but I think we should be prepared to just have a conversation with Tim about the level of funding in that line, if this year is an anomaly or if this is something that he thinks might require a change, a more permanent change. So we should have that discussion on the 15th with them. Okay. Becky, any other updates or on just in terms of getting budgets from departments? Has anybody raised any concerns or issues with you or anything we need to be aware of?
I know the police chief had a number of reports. She was trying to get passed to be able to get her budget done. So hopefully she's getting that done this week, and we should have the budget by the beginning of next week, which I know is later than hope, but I guess things have been pretty busy.
Okay.
And and I
So-
think I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, so it sounds like we will have kind of a week to review those two budgets, which I think it's probably going to work for us, but anything short of that might be an issue. So let us know if there are additional delays from either of them.
Okay.
Okay, did I cut you off or did you have something else you wanted to?
I'm sure the chief will bring it up during the meeting. She also has had a lot of vehicle issues that she was trying to put together a report on.
Okay, got it. All right. All right, folks. So just, November 15th, that's our first round of budget reviews. Okay, next up.
AJ, there's a hand up.
Oh, sorry, Susie.
Yeah. I wondered if the assessor budget would be tricky to get.
We've already started looking at it. We're pulling out old contracts to figure out what contracts are still alive or just, were one time or not. So At least one day a week, I try to focus time to spend with Leslie to go over those issues.
Mhm.
But I know you're right. It's going to take us a little bit longer for the assessor's budget because the assessor is not there to assist us.
And I think the flip of that is that you're more busy and your job as town administrator often has the picking up the pieces part or the working with a new person part. And so I think it's important for us to understand that. So I appreciate your work, but that it'll make the assessor budget harder to pull together, but it also takes your time.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
There's a hand, AJ.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Jim, trying to manage many screens.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Jim.
Along that same line is Tim Hunting's retirement. How does that play into coming up with a budget report?
The
this-
same as it did last year. I mean, as far as what he puts into it,
Yeah, well, we
I
don't know
mean,
who's going to
yeah.
replace him, do we?
No.
You extended a year though.
Extended a
it's
year.
been extended a year, so it'll go into next year.
Okay,
And the new person will have to live within his budget.
All right. Any other questions, Bob?
Just a quick question to Becky. Was there any progress on the assessor's position, filling it? Has there been any progress on that at all?
We've been working, the focus has been on getting the reval done and all the components of the recap that the assessor is responsible for. So we've been working with a consultant named Roy Bishop, who has stepped in to help facilitate that. As a side note, knowing, becoming aware of our situation, he said he was going to put together a quote to assist Shutesbury with his son's new consulting firm that he is part of. I don't expect to get that quote until we complete all the recap work that needs to be done, but he's going to do that. And I haven't had any responses to our ad, but in November, the Beacon will have our printed ad. So there's potential somebody actually will go beyond the online ads and be inspired. That's how we got Kevin Redden in the first place. So I hate to be optimistic.
Why?
Because Leslie went to an assessor's meeting and she sat at a table with nine people total. And five of the towns at her table did not have assessors.
So did you file a missing persons report with the police on this yet?
In fact, kinda. But
Oh, wow. Is Leslie capable of running the show? Or even?
she would not want, she has declined to take that on. She is running the show at the moment. She is holding things together and doing a remarkable job organizationally. The assessors themselves, Jeff Quackenbush as chair, is doing a lot of extra work that he normally wouldn't do. And on top of the two, anyway, he's working hard. So are the other assessors are paying attention, and they're getting all the chapter land issues, chapter 61 issues filed and dealt with. Leslie has been actively processing all those and some other major activities, and looking forward to all the exemptions, getting all that paperwork out in January. So the office is maintaining. We do need a higher level of support for that office, and after we get through the recap, we can focus in on the best way to do that. But we are getting good exposure. to other people out there and consultants that have been assisting us, like David Burgess. We've cleaned up a couple of long running issues. So folks are calming down about open issues with the assessors. So we're doing the best we can. Leslie is doing the best she can, and we're holding it together.
Thanks.
And there's certification issues, right? You need the person that has certifications.
Yes,
in the long term.
and as far as just to be an assessor, like on the board of assessors, we have 3 people. They just changed the law just to be so helpful.
Mhm.
Where it used to be, if you joined, if you were appointed to the Board of Assessors, you had 2 years to fulfill your certification, which includes going to I think it's, no, it's only, maybe it's only 1 week, 1 or 2 week everyday course at UMass during the summer. And then you have to pass the tests that are required with that. And instead of giving 2 years, as they always had done, now they only give 1 year to get that done. So that's going to make things a little more demanding as well.
That's called incentivizing, right? Volunteers.
Yeah. Overworking them.
All right.
Okay. I think our next item is to provide an update on from the regional school committee guardrail group. Bob and I, since George has been away, I stepped in, but we attended the last meeting. It's actually the final meeting, so that this committee is wrapped up. And I can share a couple observations, and I think, Bob, I'm sure you have some takeaways. Basically, I found it interesting. I mean, given that, despite the fact, I should say, that I think there's not a whole lot of enthusiasm for the idea of the guardrails. It does seem to me that they're sort of moving forward with it. I didn't get this. I mean, it's still part of the presentations that Doug Slaughter and Mike Morris shared, and they certainly didn't communicate during that meeting that they would be removing that concept from their proposed assessment method. I think there was a few different comments. One that I think I had a little bit of a concern about. One was, I think, first of all, Doug really kind of stressed this idea that it's kind of a worst case scenario kind of like provision. And Mandy Jo Haneke from Amherst made a point which seemed like a little bit concerning, which is that she said that no town should be allowed to experience a decrease in their assessment in any particular year, and that should be part of this process, since, as a representative of Amherst, her observation is that, Amherst every year, it's just assumed that they're going to experience something around whatever 1.5–2% increase in their assessment. And of course, that's because they're in the driver's seat, and they kind of set the parameters for this. But I think sort of her perspective was, well, it's like it's assumed Amherst is going to increase by a certain increment every year, so why should any town actually benefit from a decrease? Which was odd but interesting point.
So much for formulas, huh?
Yeah, right. I think some other things that were said. So, Tom Hankinson from Leverett we haven't heard it in a little while, but he did at some point during the meeting said, well, Leverett doesn't support the statutory method. We prefer 5-year rolling average. Fortunately, that did not like devolve the discussion and didn't sound like anybody was going to take that too seriously, but nevertheless, that did kind of rear its head again, that idea from Leverett. I think one thing I feel like I should mention and share is, Becky, can I share my
Yeah,
screen?
yeah, yeah.
Doug did prepare a spreadsheet that I found it very confusing, to be honest with you, because it was sort of like basically playing out this concept over a 9-year period. And it was sort of like he made the point that like some of the information used to make these calculations was based on real data, but it wasn't entirely clear. But one of the things that was a little alarming, if you notice, our line, it sort of had us, in several years being in this scenario where, were it not for a guardrail, we would be experiencing an increase that exceeded 4%. So, I mean, that was a little worrying, but I don't know. I also wasn't sort of sure how seriously to take these numbers, because it was a little cryptic to me. I don't know, Bob, did you have a reaction to this spreadsheet and kind of how it depicted our town in particular?
Yeah, I think he admitted it at the top that he was using some real numbers, historic numbers, but he's also adding in some budget increase numbers, which he conceded were not realistic because they would never be approved by Amherst. So I looked at that as a kind of as not really very useful if the numbers were not reliable or practical.
Sure.
And I really think, and maybe you agree with this, maybe not, but the impression I got was that the region, Doug Slaughter and the people from the region want the guardrail. And there was, as you said, there was not a lot of enthusiasm for it from the towns, from Amherst, not, from the little towns, no. But they want it, and they're going to keep it unless we tell them we don't want it. I personally don't support it. I don't think it could be equitably implemented. I think that we supported the statutory method with the 5-year rolling average. That was our goal. We seem to achieve that. And this guardrail, I think it's kind of backsliding by the regional administration. And I wish we had another meeting, but I think they wanted to leave it the way it was because this spreadsheet kind of confused the issue completely because people were the meeting prior to this one, AJ, it was pretty unanimous that nobody supported it. So I think that the region really wants this guardrail. I personally don't think it's there's going to be some fluctuations with the small towns. That's built in structurally into the numbers. And Amherst isn't going to fluctuate because they have a larger base, and some small change in their enrollment won't really change their relative position.
And ultimately they're going to dictate what they're
going to dictate what the budget is every year.
Yeah.
It's inevitable because of their heavyweights, but I don't know. I really don't know. I felt a little bit bad about the way they did that. I thought it was a little dishonest, the way this was presented.
Yeah, it was sort of like, I mean, I think I largely agree with you about kind of what their goal appears to be, which is to keep it in. And I sort of sound, at the end of the day, it seems like this committee was kind of an opportunity to let towns, like in theory, provide feedback, but it doesn't sound like it's necessarily going to inform how they proceed. I definitely got that impression too, Bob, that they are kind of committed to including it. So I think an important point for us is to like, and we don't have to make this decision tonight, but I do think before, whenever sort of the next whenever the 4-town meeting process starts up again. I think it's going to be important for us to have a consensus view on guardrails. And I just want to say at this point right now, I don't think this is a sort of hill that we want to die on. I think that I think ultimately what's important to us is the statutory, method, 100% statutory, and that's our priority. That's what we ultimately care about. And this guardrails issue, if it ever does come to play for our town, it seems like it's just as likely to prevent us from experiencing an excessive increase as it would be to prevent us from experiencing a huge savings in any year. Like to me, just looking at Doug's spreadsheet, and I understand it's not
Chicken
to be
shit in,
taken-
chicken shit out.
Yeah, it's not to be taken too literally, but I think it does sort of, I don't know, for me, it did sort of raise the specter that like, maybe we shouldn't just assume that the guardrails is something that can only, prevent us from realizing kind of maximum savings under statutory. That maybe it can actually help us prevent, what would otherwise be a really painful increase in a given year. So that's kind of my positions. Why don't I go to Susie and then back to you, Bob?
So one of the things in our previous discussion before you went to the last meeting was our guess is that it really wouldn't play out to be large increases or decreases. And so for that reason, the guardrails weren't really necessary between the adjustment we made and the 5-year rolling average and populations changing, but not so radically that we wouldn't be prepared. So I guess it was probably unnerving to see this, and it's also something confusing to hear them say they're listening, but then they disagree. But I agree with you, the analysis that we don't have to necessarily fight about guardrails. We have a perception that it may not end up being an issue for us.
Bob,
Yeah, I just
so
want to say,
in addition to commenting, Bob, if there were kind of key details I left out from the meeting, please
yeah,
fill
I
in.
guess the thing that struck me was that we did work really hard over a great number of years to achieve a goal, which was the 5-year rolling average and statutory method combined. We as a committee, we voted to accept a compromise and to allow guardrails to be implemented on a one-time basis last year. That's the way it was presented because of the shock that Pelham would experience from a full transition to statutory 5-year rolling average. And then this guardrail thing, it became an issue that we supposedly met to discuss with the subcommittee. And I really, Doug and Mike Morris both said, well, we're doing this because you wanted us to do this. Well, that's just untrue. I think that they want to do it. I don't know why exactly. I really don't. I think that the 5-year rolling average with the statutory is the most equitable system. I think that's what I would represent. Unfortunately, we're going into this 4-town meeting, as usual, with unresolved basic issues about how we're going to conduct the assessment. That's unfortunate, but we're used to it. So
Yeah.
I think that we'll have to have a discussion before the meeting, as you say, to explore this issue further. But
Yeah.
that was my take about that meeting.
Gotcha. All right. Does anybody have any questions or initial thoughts, Jim? And then Becky?
But due to the fact that our school population is declining year by year and get fewer and fewer students, isn't that going to make the calculation, the 5-year rolling average, a lot more volatile and jumpy, so to speak? And doesn't that account for why we may face a substantial increase in, I don't know, 3 or 4 years? I can't read this the spreadsheet that you brought out. I've been trying to locate my glasses, so I could, because it's very, very small print. But at any rate, oh yeah, that's much better. So I don't know, maybe the guardrails will sort of work to our advantage down the road. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess in the absence of knowing exactly how these figures were calculated, I guess a question I would want you all to think about, and we don't have to get into it today, but think about is, were there to be a year, in the future, 2, 3, 4 years out, where due to either population swings or maybe positive increases in our property value assessments or what have you, were we to experience a significant over 4% increase in our assessment using our preferred method, 5-year rolling average statutory, modified statutory, would it be appropriate, fair, appropriate, and helpful to have a guardrail to at least buffer some of that? And I think that's worth thinking about. And again, how important an issue is this for us? Does it warrant kind of coming into that negotiating process from a position of like feeling like we need to advocate for a change, or for once, is this like maybe we want to be on the side of like where the regional school committee seems to be going, which is embracing the statutory method. Susie.
Do we have a date for town meeting? Is it set?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay.
All right, Becky, did you have something you wanted to chime in on? Yeah, on this.
I just had a question. Did Doug say there was, are all these numbers based on a particular set of enrollment assumptions that he used?
Yeah.
And if so, can we have access to that?
Yeah, he was pretty vague about it. He did say that I think he did utilize some real numbers. I think, to Bob's point, like one of the things that makes this ultimately unrealistic is if you look at this row, outside of year 2, it has Amherst, experiencing increased assessments, exceeding 4%, 5%. And we know that they're never gonna live or accept anything probably beyond 2, maybe 2.5%, something like that. So, again, in the same way that they're always kind of in the driver's seat about kind of what's the maximum increase they're willing to live with in any year, that's going to ultimately drive everything else downwards. So I think he was not terribly specific about which numbers he utilized to calculate these. Bob?
Just to reinforce what you're saying, if you look at those numbers, those 4% plus increases are not going to happen. He acknowledged that, and yet those numbers, that data is what created the high rises for Shutesbury that are in this chart. So without that 4% increase, which is basically represents an increase in the overall budget, Shutesbury's numbers don't rise that much. As far as the enrollment numbers go, he took them from some historical period. I don't know when. And so, but that's not necessarily reflect what's going to happen. My own view is that whatever our enrollment is, if we're having a bulge in enrollment, which many people say to me that we're going to have an increase in our enrollment and because of our new people moving to town that have young ones. Well, if that happens, then we have to pay for it, just like you do when you drive 2 cars or something. Like we consider it to be an equitable thing. If people have more students, that they pay more. That's part of the statutory method, and it's fair as far as I'm
Right.
concerned.
I
So,
understand that point, Bob, but it is, that method involves some smoothing, and, this is another sort of layer of smoothing. So it's not like it's without precedent in our preferred method for there to be some smoothing that has the purpose of minimizing any individual, like an unusual change for any town, either positive or in the negative direction. And so I think this is just another level of smoothing. You may, and you may have the view, we may as a town may ultimately have the view that it's an unnecessary additional level of layer of smoothing, but nevertheless, it's not like it's totally sort of antithetical to the
if I may make one point very quickly, the smoothing that we have in a 5-year rolling average actually doesn't change the cost to the town. It just smooths it out over time. So instead of having jumps in your assessment, you smooth it out. If you have the guardrails, you lose. If you had a 7% decrease and Pelham had a 7% increase, you transfer your money, just like we did last year, directly to Pelham, and it ain't coming back. It's not smoothing. It's a direct subsidy to another town. That's very different.
Okay. I guess I'm not totally seeing the distinction, but that's okay. Jim, Walton.
Yeah, I guess I got pulled away for a minute there, so you might have already covered this. These are all statutory numbers, pure statutory?
This is, so everything, again, I want to make the point that Bob made. I don't think the numbers are to be taken too seriously here, but yes, these were all calculated using the modified statutory method that was utilized for last fiscal year.
So when you say modified, meaning includes a 5-year rolling average?
Yes.
These big jumps include a 5-year rolling average?
Yes. Again, I don't know exactly kind of what the source of some of these numbers like on enrollments were, but he said that he utilized some, like these were not arbitrary. He used some numbers. Again, it was a little bit cryptic, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, given all that, I mean, I'm sort of, I thought we were at the same place that Bob referred to earlier, and that was these guardrails, or these new guardrails were a one-time deal. It's like for 1 year, just to get us to statutory with the 5-year rolling average.
Well, that's certainly.
And then after that, and then following that, the 5-year rolling average could be the guardrails. But I mean, essentially 5-year rolling average is a form of guardrail.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if you heard, Bob and I both got the impression from the last meeting, which was the final meeting of this committee, that they're pretty committed to including, it sounded to us like they were pretty committed to including guardrails as part of their proposed assessment method that they bring to the Four Towns meeting. So I think at least for now, they're going to try to see if they can include them. And Bob, you asked the question. Well, let me take some other comments. Susie and then Becky.
So I would like to assign myself getting the enrollment numbers that Doug Slaughter used, which when you're looking at middle school and high school, you do have 6 years of elementary school feeding in. So I'll find out what he used.
Okay, great. Becky.
I just wanted to point out, like last year when we took the guardrail and we lost the 3% or whatever it was, and we didn't decrease by the full amount, we only decreased partially, and then Pelham got the benefit of that. That it tends to screw things up ongoing. I've been through a number of discussions at the region about trying to install guardrails. They've only worked on a one-time basis during all the regional school discussions, we tried to establish a guardrail practice. And using real numbers, but as we took it to the next year and the next year, you get 3 years out and things are totally mangled.
Yeah.
Your original intent starts to have an opposite intent. So something that might have benefited the one town starts to really hurt a different town. And I have never seen a convincing argument for guardrails that are, go out long term. But I do think the committee was formed to develop out the guardrail method. My assumption is there is someone in Amherst pushing the administration to do this. And it's likely Andy Steinberg.
Yep.
And my question for Bob and AJ and George when he's back, have you guys spoken up? Do we need to write a letter about this? I mean,
So that, I guess, I mean, that is, so yes, I mean, I think it's our position was communicated, and it was not all that different from, I think, the other towns. I don't think there would, like, as we've said, I don't think there's a ton of enthusiasm for guardrails anywhere. I think it's it's purely speculative to like try to understand why they seem committed to move forward with it. I think I would sort of take for essentially take them at their word that that the reason they would want to include them in the future is the same reason they wanted to include it last year, which was that it sort of made the transition to a modified statutory method more palatable for towns. I think it served a kind of an important kind of political function last year, right? To get us to where I think we ultimately as a town wanted to be. It sort of helped ease that transition. And I think they're probably thinking that the concept is something that's going to help in the future sort of build some consensus and address some anxiety that any individual town might have about how our assessment method, which I think they want to essentially become the permanent method, how it might impact any one town in any particular year. I think they think that it's probably going to help make it more palatable to kind of stick with this method. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that there are people in Amherst who are never going to be impacted by guardrails, because they're never going to be in a position as a town where they're going to be beyond 4%, because they're never going to allow that to happen. So it's like, the guardrails are never going to be an issue for Amherst specifically. So I don't know why else they would. Yeah, Bob.
Yeah, I just want to reinforce what Becky said. I'm not sure about the Andy Steinberg connection, but it's certainly true that the regional school, Andy Steinberg is a town councilor. The town council seemed to be more skeptical about the guardrails than the major proponent of the guardrail seems to be the regional school administration. I don't know what their logic is. It doesn't persuade me, but I think you're right. It's very difficult to implement this equitably, and it's impossible, I would say, because of the issues we tried to raise. I think the statutory method 5-year rolling average accomplishes what we set out to try to accomplish as a town. I think it's fair, it's equitable compared to other methods. And I don't think that we should die on the hill, as you said, AJ, but I think we should certainly express our views clearly and and firmly at this future meeting that we have.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll definitely have an opportunity to discuss and prepare in advance of the next Four Towns meeting. Jim?
Yeah, did you say you don't have another meeting scheduled
They
yet?
said specifically that meeting was the final meeting of this committee.
So what do you mean by the next meeting then?
Putting the Four Towns meeting.
Okay, so can we go on the record as a committee that we we don't support this guardrail? Or,
We had a vote last meeting.
Yeah.
so you've already done that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think we're gonna see a presentation from the regional school committee in advance of the Four Towns meeting. And I think it's gonna have some, again, maybe something will happen between now and then, but I suspect it's gonna have some form of this guardrail concept built into it. And I think at that point, we should look at that information that they're providing, and we should have, similar to what we've done in the past, we should have a discussion about it with the select board and school committee. And, you know, I think it really helped us to have kind of a consensus, and we sort of spoke as a town kind of with a single voice last year. And I think that ultimately was a good thing for us. And so I think we should do the same this year. But yeah, so I think we will have an opportunity to discuss it, react to Doug Slaughter's next PowerPoint, and ultimately vote along with the school committee on select board on a kind of formal position for the town.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else on this? All right. So I guess until the next Four Towns meeting, we'll see how they, how they implement this. All right. At our last meeting, we talked about the high school track project and sort of wanting to have a better handle on what that process is gonna, how it's gonna unfold, and sort of what kinds of decisions are we gonna have to make about it. And so, let me stop sharing this, hang on a sec. So I thought it was important to just do a little bit of kind of reviewing sort of the record on this. And so in that Google Drive that I've shared with you all, there's a folder in there that's labeled Amherst Track and Field Project, something along those lines. And I put some documents in there. Hang on a second, I'm gonna. And so I just wanted to share that with you all. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right, so in this folder, there's kind of the different presentations that Doug Slaughter and Mike Morris have made on the project. So if folks want to dive in there, they're welcome to. And then I just extracted all of the discussions of the track project from the minutes of the regional school committee. I should probably make this bigger. Let's see.
AJ, did you send us this link today?
Yes. Just like maybe 20 minutes or half an hour before our meeting.
Oh,
You should
okay.
have got an invite to join this Google Drive.
Oh, that's,
Yeah, I don't think I
Did you not
got
get
that. No.
Okay, I'll resend it after, and I'll double check that I'm using your right email address. Sounds like Susie got it. So did anybody else get it? Melody and Susie?
yeah, I just, 6:16 is when you sent it.
Yeah, so yeah, like 15
Yeah,
minutes.
I was
before
wondering.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was from, I'm looking for AJ. It's Finance Committee. I have it.
Yes, yeah.
No. Gotcha. All right.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. It should be there. Anyway, so this is just like a history of sort of presentations on this project that have come up in regional school committee meeting. So if folks want to kind of get more informed on this project, this might be useful thing to look at. So those documents are there. I think I should share. Let's see, where is that?
AJ,
Yeah,
I just had a thought that I think the finance committee would need to decide, but it would probably be very helpful for the select board to also have access to these documents.
sure.
I
So,
just
yeah.
wanted to be sure it's okay with the finance committee.
Yeah, I can share them. I don't think I'm gonna invite them to this folder because it'll have our other FinCom documents, but I'll make sure to share them with the select board, the actual documents.
Okay.
Okay, so I think what I wanted to just share with folks was this slide, because I think it's kind of the most recent sort of update on kind of what the financial implications are. So just so everybody's clear. All right. So the regional school committee voted to authorize a debt of $1.5 million to support improvements to the track. With, I forget exactly how they phrased it, but in their language, they said that they had an intention to raise an additional $2.2 million by this timeline, which is not far away, January 16th. This was specifically for one of two options. They're now, I should say, have committed to basically option 3, which is to move and resize and reorient the track and install synthetic turf. So I think there are a couple things that I think were clarified for me in kind of going through these documents. One is that they have essentially made the decision to move forward with the reorientation and install synthetic turf project. They've specifically tied their fundraising efforts to that project. So I think there was discussion that there wasn't going to be a lot of enthusiasm on the fundraising side of things if they were pursuing one of the other options. So I think it's important for us as a committee to recognize that the regional school committee has essentially at least a plan to move forward with one of those options. It happens to be the reorientation, and they're not actually asking us for feedback about that option versus one of the other. There were actually, and ultimately it was like 4 different potential projects. So I think that's one kind of key takeaway. The other key takeaway is that, we've got, they've got a goal to raise the, $2.2 million through a variety of sources. And those include CPA funds from both Amherst and member towns. So in other words, this first row here represents that $1.5 million that's already been allocated for the project. And I believe that was in our capital budget, right? That was passed at the town meeting. So this is the debt, our share of that debt authorization. We're essentially going to be asked, or we're being asked by the regional school committee to come up with 84, essentially it's about $85,000. If you go to this next slide, it's $85,000 $69. They've, in this slide, Doug proposed that that money would come from our CPA funds, but again, that's where it's sort of our decision as a committee is to make a recommendation about how to allocate that additional $85,000, which is on top of our debt obligation that was, that represented that initial $1.5 million vote. So I think that's kind of our role as a committee, is to kind of propose a plan for how we're going to raise that additional amount of funding. So I'm going to stop there, see if Bob, and then we'll go to Susie.
Yeah, I just want to make a couple quick points. One, I hope that members received the information that I forwarded to you from the Globe and from the Guardian about AstroTurf and its problems with toxins and so forth. This is a very, very lively issue now on Nextdoor. And I think that people in the community, the regional community, are going to be very interested in this issue, and it's going to present problems for the region and their plan. For example, I know the chair of the Pelham CPA, and they had a vote. They voted unanimously to say that they would not support contributing. They would not recommend to their town meeting that the CPA funds be used for an artificial turf surface. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I would not. I personally.
What town was that, Bob?
Town of Pelham. And I think this is not, Pelham is not going to be the only town that's where the citizens are object to this. The other point I want to make is I think it's a bad idea personally to put in an AstroTurf, and it's also bad for potential concussions and injuries. These carpets wear out. They cause head. It's been proven established that they contribute to head injuries for athletes. The other thing is the disposal cost of these materials is expensive, and they're very bad. It's very bad for the environment. It's got toxins in it. And finally, they're still using numbers that they acquired years ago. And we live in a different world now, cost-wise for these kinds of projects. And I asked Doug to update these estimates at our first side meeting that you weren't present at, AJ, but he said he would get right back to me, and he never has, because I don't think that these numbers are reliable that they're using. So if it's like everything else, it's going to go up significantly. So, I think there's a general agreement that the field is not good for the kids down there, the athletes at the school. But I don't know if there's general agreement that it should be moved, or it should be reoriented, or it should be finished with AstroTurf. But I predict that there's going to be some problems. I personally would think that the Finance Committee, these are very large numbers. They have financial impacts for our town, and I think we should at some point be able to make some recommendation other than the CPA one, personally.
Yeah. So I guess I would just like for us to have some clarity at the end of this meeting about kind of what our discussion as a Finance Committee about this project is going to be focused on. So Susie, and then Jim.
Yep. So when I listened to Doug Slaughter at the meeting, he came to the select board. What I heard was him wanting to know what towns' reactions to the funding of the project is. And so I have some funding responses, and some of them are right along what Bob just said. First of all, I fully endorse fixing the track so that we stay competitive as a school and not end up losing students with school choice. So I fully endorse option 2, because one, my concern is that the cost might be higher than estimated. And if we go to the most expensive option, we don't have much room to meet any cost increases that come because of inflation. 2, there are other projects in all of our towns that may come in also higher. So this is one of the many projects to engage. And if we have an option to engage a lower priced project, That gives us a little bit more flexibility to meet what's happening in our own towns. The maintenance for the current field is already in the budget. So having another grass surface would not increase that cost. And for artificial turf will need replacing in some number of years. The article talked about 8 to 10 years. And then we will have we'll have disposal costs and reinstalling artificial turf costs. And I don't believe that kind of overhaul is needed for that amount of time on natural turf. So all of those are economic reasons, which I think what the finance committee has to really consider. So it's the long term, it's the maintenance, it's the period of unknowing right now because of inflation and trying to give us a little buffer, and that we would still achieve a track if we went with option 2 and we wouldn't be as stretched out.
Just for everybody's benefit, option 2, correct me if I'm wrong, Susie, is a reorientation of the track, but it's just installing a grass turf in the middle of that track as opposed to artificial. Is that
And
right?
it improves the drainage. Right where they are now, the drainage is a problem.
Okay, so it's not resurfacing, it's actually, it's a new track, it's reorienting it, and it's grass turf. Okay, Jim?
Yeah, I think going back to a comment you made earlier, AJ, or a point you made, and you said our mission is to is to come up with a common understanding on funding.
Yeah.
Now, you're talking about the two, the CPA and the other,
Well,
meaning the local taxes, or we've already approved that.
so that's already been approved.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I believe, so that, so that that top line there, the $106,000,
Yeah,
that's in this regional school committee capital budget, I believe, that we approved last year.
Yeah.
So that's,
yeah. So what we're really looking to do here is this 84 plus 39.
well, except
how do we-
if you see there, they've essentially are giving us credit with their E&D funds for $39,000. So the kind of net additional, again, in this model, which, as Bob said, may be totally like outdated at this point. It's tied to option 3, not option 2 or any other option. But under this model, our additional obligation would be $85,000.
So
Now,
what is the, when you say E&D fund, so what is that?
that's like the
It's like their free cash.
yeah, it's you know, they use that in the regional school budget every year to essentially like reduce the amount of assessments required. It's sort of
Okay,
like,
so this is a fund that the region
Yes,
holds, and
correct.
they would allocate out of that.
Yes.
Okay,
No,
No,
Becky?
No,
no.
that's not what it is.
This year, this past year, there's a cap of how much money that they can keep in their E&D funds. And this last spring, they reported to everyone that the towns, that they had more money than they were allowed to have. And what they're required to do is distribute the overage back to the towns. So the town received the 38,898.
okay.
So they're saying, okay,
Give
we
it back.
know you got this money, you weren't expecting it. How about you just put it in this bucket?
Okay.
That's why it's called.
Okay, so
it's blue.
So we really do have there really is a decision there whether to use it there or not. Toward the, yeah.
That's one place we have a decision to make.
Okay. All right. So I guess the only other question, just to help me understand the overall picture here, is, this discussion about grass versus artificial. I'm guessing they must have had some project team that came up with this proposal with artificial, and what were the pros and cons, or how did they come out in favor of an artificial versus a grass? How was that done?
So there is discussion about it in, in those meeting minutes that I extracted, I think there was, I don't know if this is true, but there certainly was at least some discussion that artificial would have lower maintenance costs. I know that that maybe contradicts some of the points that have been raised in this meeting today, but that I think has been raised by some as a reason to prefer turf versus grass.
So overall, so the project would be higher then if it was a grass field?
No, the other way
No.
around.
Well, the construction costs would be, we know are lower for a grass field.
Oh, okay, but maintaining, the maintenance,
But the
going out and
maintenance-
watering a field and fertilizing and mowing and
No.
all that stuff.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. I just know that it was a point that was been raised by some people within the regional school committee. So, because I
Yeah.
see it in some of the reference in some of them. And I think there was some discussion. Again, this is not clear to me but that there are certain uses of the field, like it expands the potential for using the field if it's turf versus grass. Some of that I think has to do with seasonally, although again, that's not totally clear to me. I mean, does that mean that grass fields can't be used in winter? I'm not quite sure, but that was a point that was raised. Bob?
Yeah, I just want to add to what you're saying, and that
Yeah.
I think that it's interesting to see that if you buy a turf field and you pay an extra couple $1 million for a turf field versus a grass field, that's coming out of capital expenses. It's not coming out of your budget like the maintenance of the athletic fields does now. So
Mhm.
there's probably a reason there for supporting that has financial implications for the school budget, because this is a capital expense to replace it, not an ongoing operation expense. I think there's a hell of a lot of grass cutting and chalk setting in $2 million, if you're going to replace the things in 8 or 10 years. I think that there's no doubt that owning a grass field is cheaper. It's less expensive overall for the taxpayers. So I can't see how the public is going to support this. I'm puzzled by it, but I think the only explanation that I can divine is, yeah, this is going to be a capital expense to replace it. It won't add to the budget for the school and the school can actually benefit from a reduced budget for operations in terms of the maintenance of those fields, because now it's going to be AstroTurf and it won't require the same cost to maintain it. You just have to replace it from a capital account.
Susie, did you have another comment?
Yeah. I did read about one of the benefits for AstroTurf is that, if it rains, it doesn't, slippery, wet grass makes the field less useful. And in some ways, having AstroTurf would expand services. And right now, we may not be able to support that. And I want to go back to the beginning where I said, Doug came to the select board and he said, give us your thoughts. So, so having thoughts about a different plan or a different option for economic reasons seems legitimate to me. And, they may choose to ignore it, but then I think the other piece we would need is an updated estimate, because that would show how much money we would need to come up with. And 85,000 plus the 106. I mean, we're going to have to come up with that too. We've committed to that. That's what's in that column. Blue is only suggested and black is committed. So it's not just coming up with the 85. And it is choosing to spend our E&D money that's coming back to us to allocate it back into the school. That would be another choice.
Yeah. Okay, Jim Walton?
Yeah, I just think it would be good. We we're all, I think, assuming at some level why they've come up with this proposal with the artificial versus grass. I think it would probably be good to have the whole package of how they came up with that solution. Because I think people in Amherst are just as concerned about safety and some of these other issues as we are, right?
Yeah.
I would think.
Yes, but I think there might be, there might be some sort of shifting kind of public opinion about this, because I think at least as it's depicted in the regional school committee discussion, I think there was generally, it was perceived as the turf was perceived as the option that would have most fundraising appeal. So I think they were at least making an assumption at one point in time. Now, again, that may have changed due to some of the concerns that, like, for instance, Bob has raised, and maybe some of the discussion that's generated. But at least at one point in time, they were operating under the assumption that there was more public support for a turf option, and that had something to do with, it's kind of like expanded services, expanded usage time, potential revenue, and just as a more kind of, I don't know, sort of an attractive sort of option for residents, and so maybe some of that has changed. I don't know. Bob?
Yeah, I just want to say, looking at this spreadsheet, it kind of reminds me of the question I was going to ask you, AJ. You said we're committed to the $106,000 that was in the capital plan for the region. I think that document was presented to us as part of their capital plan, but I don't think that our town meeting approved that money. That money is yet to be approved. It's not,
Yeah.
we're not paying tax. Am I wrong about that, Becky?
Yeah, I think you're wrong. It came through last year. The regional school voted it. And the towns had a 6-week window to protest it, and none of the towns did. And having felt out the other towns, Shutesbury did not protest it. So it's not that the town has to vote it. The way the capital works is a vote of the school committee that goes uncontested stands.
Okay, but we did not approve it at town meeting.
You don't have to.
There's no
Okay.
place to do that.
I
There
misspoke.
is
then.
no town meeting vote to do that.
Okay, but AJ had stated that, so that's what I was trying to correct.
Yeah, so no, thank you for clarifying. So I misspoke. I had understanding that we were committed, but I thought that was because of a vote.
No, AJ, you're correct. We are committed, but it's not a direct town meeting vote.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Jim Hemingway?
When will the issue about AstroTurf versus natural turf be decided? It seems to me we're just talking about this, and until that decision is made, I don't see how we can really get into the economics of it. And I also don't see how Amherst could possibly, let alone all of the other towns, support something that, the city of Boston has outlawed, the installation of artificial turf anywhere, and along with a handful of other towns as well. I think the tide is shifting rapidly against it, but still we have to wait until the decision is made, because, money is, big money is involved here.
Yeah.
What did
Susie?
you say?
I would suggest that we follow up on what I believe, and Becky can maybe verify this, what Doug Slaughter came to the select board and said. What is your town's reaction to meeting this proposal? And regardless, there are economic reasons that I feel the finance committee could endorse going to the middle project, because the estimates, the disposal, and something else in my notes. that it is a big chunk to bite off, and it really needs to be seen in terms of both amounts, the 106 and the 85, and that we have other projects we're trying to get through, and the current economy makes it more difficult. So I feel like I could support option 2 because it gives us a little bit more leeway, and we won't have a returfing and disposal problem in 8 years.
Okay, Bob?
Well, would it be appropriate for me to make a motion? I would just propose here to make a motion that I think could possibly be voted positively. That is that we do not support option 3. I actually support option 1 myself. I think the drainage issues could be addressed. But that's neither here nor there. I think that Susie and I would both agree that we don't support option 3. So I wonder whether the committee would support me making a motion that we vote to deny support to artificial turf for this project. Does anybody think that's something that could be seconded?
Second.
And I would like to couch our statement in terms of the FinCom's fiscal guidance.
Sure.
All right. So, all right. So is there further discussion about this? I mean, I guess my initial reaction, Bob, to the idea is that, boy, I'd like to hear like a new update from the region about kind of what their plan is before like we take a formal vote on a position, but I don't know.
I could go with that, but so we should send a letter to Doug or ask him for clarification. I don't know.
Becky?
I would just suggest, number one, AJ spent a bunch of time collecting all the data that exists on this. The committee has not yet had a chance to review it. And the second thing is when Doug Slaughter came to the select board, notice was given to the finance committee and only Susie showed up. So I think Doug made the effort to reach out and came to Shutesbury, trying to get better information. But I think it would be wonderful if the committee would commit to reading about all the information that AJ has collected before taking a vote.
I'm good with that. I can withdraw the motion for now if the committee wants to do it that way. I have not read these minutes.
And I think maybe also while that's happening, it sounds like a conversation with Doug Slaughter would be a worthwhile thing. So Susie, it sounded like you were already planning to speak with him about getting some clarification on enrollment numbers that were used. Do you want to also maybe ask him about kind of what's sort of the current thinking about the track project and what they are proposing and kind of what their process is going to be? I mean, I'm assuming this is going to be part of the Four Towns discussion, you would think. Right?
And I guess I still thought his coming there to our select board meeting, and we talked about a time frame that we want to get back to him about what our town was feeling.
Yeah.
I guess if I didn't understand him, I want to get that clarified. So I also asked him,
Okay.
Can we give feedback in terms of what we're prepared to meet and what our concerns about meeting it. So
Right.
so it's a process question, an update question, and an update on their framework, and then also the population numbers.
But Susie, also an update on projected cost, I think would be useful.
Yeah, that's what I said, updated on cost. Clarify if the process is to get him some information about our FinCom's reaction and then the population numbers. Well,
Okay.
update not only on cost, but where they think this is going.
Right.
right? Is that AJ saying? Yeah.
Yeah, because, I think the vote that they took back in March, right here, this is actually in the motion that they voted on back in March, is that, their commitment to option 3 is pending additional funding of $2.2 million raised by January 16th. So like, that means, that they would have to be hearing from towns about kind of at least a proposal for how we intend to make our additional contribution beyond the 1.5 million that's already been allocated. Becky.
I think Rita Farrell's response to Doug on that issue, as she used to be co-chair of the CPC, he was asking about the CPA funds, and she said that our process really couldn't accommodate your timeline, because we basically go to town meeting for the final vote on CPA funding. And I think was about as far as the conversation went. And I think in Amherst, the council can do things much more immediately, and they were able to make that decision whenever they wanted to.
Yeah. Susie?
The other thing he said was that it was counting on the fundraising piece of it, which is about $1 million. And I happen to be involved in whether my high school class of 71 wants to make a donation to this project. And the boosters said they have done some work and they're about to go public. So I don't know how much they've been able to raise, but it doesn't look, but it's not out yet. And they are, of course, volunteers trying to do their part. So it does feel like this is still a work in progress for the funding. And I feel we have a way of looking at what part of that funding we can support. And yeah, I think we should read the notes and then and I'll talk to Doug about these 3 things.
Yeah, and let me just mention that the last update, the last discussion of this in the regional school committee that I could find was back on June 9th. And Doug Slaughter reported there that the Amherst CPA committee voted to allocate or recommend $800,000, but that was tied specifically to option 3. And so those funds were subject to them moving forward with option 3. So, but again, I don't know, Bob, it sounds like you've gotten a sense that there's been a lot of discussion about this, recent discussion about this. And so maybe the situation's different now. I don't know, but that would be worth hearing from Doug.
I think there's a lot of things that are different in general because people are more worried about the economy. There's the issue of this that's been raised recently in the press about the safety, long-term safety to athletes for this turf and the environmental issues and so forth. So I think it's gonna be, I think you're right, it's a work in progress, and there's gonna be more developments here before this job crystallizes into a plan,
Yeah. All right. I feel like we should move on. I know Melody's got a hard stop at 8:30. I'm sure we all wouldn't mind wrapping up if we could by then. So let us turn to the latest expense report, which I think, Becky, you just sent us this week, I think, right?
It's uncanny. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna share my screen so we can look at it.
Okay.
All right, so I'm reminded of the new format here. Yeah. Jim Walton, did you have?
Yeah. I was looking at from your minutes from the last meeting that I wasn't there. I know you must have talked about this a little bit, but is there some way to make this a little more digestible?
Yes. Oh,
The expense report format you're talking about.
That's an understatement if I've ever heard one.
This is a 33 pager.
33.
Yeah. And, we need to be able to, I just don't think it's really easy to work. It's not very easy to work with.
No.
And I know there's the change made with software or whatever, but there must be some things within that package that could be manipulated to make this a little bit more digestible.
I really hope so. There's a lot of lines here that unnamed account.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
It-
Yeah, I mean,
It's-
I'm assuming that the package has a set of canned reports that are kind of built in to the software, and this must be one of them, but maybe there's an option to create a custom report or something that could be.
Oh, I missed this in the minutes, which was Becky said, the other version is more confusing. So she said there were two, and this was the one that was less
More
confusing.
readable.
So
Oh,
I should have put that in the minutes, but also it's a learning curve of how to make your eyes look at the useful lines and not the unuseful lines.
Yeah,
well, why not eliminate all of the numbered lines, like where it's 300, 300, 5300 -000. If you just knock those all out, that at least would be a step in the right direction, because that information is just repeated in the following lines. I mean, a lot could be done to, to tinker with this, to make it a lot more readable, I would think.
yeah, I mean, Jim, it seems like the way to do that would just be to put the budget and the well, no, I mean, the budget is the allocation, right? Is there ever a time where the budget for a line is going to be different from the amount allocated?
Well, it's stated, I mean, in my looking at this, it's, what the budget is already stated in the, in the description of the line itself. So it's sort of repeated. And I think we could tinker with that. And if you just eliminate all those lines, that would maybe cut the pages down by 50% or close to it. And then maybe categorize it a little bit better. I find it just impossible, very,
What do
very
you mean
difficult.
by we could do it? Are you thinking?
Well,
First
I
of all,
don't-
it's a
Can't touch
PDF. It's a PDF,
Can't
so
touch
you
it.
know, you
Well, I
can't.
know it's I know it's a PDF, but this would depend on Gail's ability to make some changes, or whoever is in charge of this to make changes. It's just very difficult to use.
Yeah,
So-
I'm just wondering whether maybe whoever the supplier was for this, maybe they could provide some support to work with us on.
Yeah, for
Maybe they'll clean it up, or-
$10,000, for 10,000 or whatever
Yeah.
it was that we spent, we could,
We can bring the issues to the accountant, but she has full authority over it, and that's what I asked her, if we could have a report where, like the old one, where you had the name, the account number, then the names, and then you have the numbers. But this, by combining the account names and the account numbers underneath, and now that the account numbers are twice, longer than the old ones, it makes your eyes go buggy.
Yeah.
Do you know if she's having this problem with any other town using Vadar?
No.
We
Yeah, that's
could
a
just
good,
learn-
I sort of like that. So maybe so a lot of towns might be using this, or.
Oh, yeah, there's hundreds in
Yeah.
Massachusetts.
So maybe,
This is
has there
the
been any
most-
reach out? Maybe other towns have worked on this. I can't imagine everybody's happy with this kind of a format, all these towns out there. Can't be happy with,
Yeah, they can,
Well,
Really?
and-
because
So-
they never had what you guys had.
but
So
I've-
they this for the 20 years, it's what they've known, and they didn't have what you guys used to have.
well, I've worked with budgets a lot bigger than a $6 million budget. They had not 33 pages to digest.
The reason it has 33 pages is it has all the
Horizontal.
funds in it,
oh,
but it's.
Oh, yeah.
to
Yeah,
have
well, still,
one
even,
at
yeah,
14 pages.
right.
It's essentially it's two budget lines per where we used to see one, right? So for
Right.
every line, we've got 2 rows of data basically instead of one. So right there, it's going to be twice the length of what we were used to seeing.
so when I was looking at this, is let's just look at the first one. It says 134. That's the budgeted, but there's nothing spent out of it, because that's the moderator.
Correct?
There's nothing spent. Where would the spent part show up when it gets spent?
I mean, isn't that,
It's payment, this
Payment
period
to
is
date?
in the right-hand side.
Right, so then the bottom, the bold under segment 2, 9,288, that is spent money for the segment called select board, right? Is
Yep.
that how we look at it? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yes, you got it.
Okay, so I think I'm gonna just start concentrating on that column called payment this period. I'll look at the bold. I'll understand that it's made of the numbers just up to the next dotted line. And the percent variable, what is that part, do you know?
Yeah, that, how much of the budget has been spent,
that's,
Okay.
just like on the old
Percent
budget.
Just like the other one. Okay, so, I mean, we could learn. And it could be that she can find out how other towns have, if they've changed it in any way or found an easy way, but it's
Yeah,
work.
I'll follow up and asking if, and there's gonna be, and I can call Vadar and see if they have any other options or not.
Mhm.
Hmm.
It's basically, as you said, it's the same as the other one. It just doesn't look as clear to the,
yeah,
at first glance. It looks, there's a lot of extra figures in there, extra lines in there, but you can ignore them.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
yeah, I mean,
I just don't
think
want to print a 33-page document and then to study it. I like having the hard copy.
that's
Well,
frustrating.
you have to buy more paper, Bob, for your printer.
Jeez, and ink.
And ink.
And ink, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's a wasteful. We have a big stack, you know, I mean, it's kind of awful, but
I mean, I think along the lines of what Susie was saying, I think a lot of us are sort of in the practice of kind of, when we read these reports, of being kind of focused on that last column and sort of, having a general idea of kind of where we are in the fiscal year. And so, having some sense of whether that percent I guess, I don't know if it's variance or what, but percent spent basically is off in some significant way from where we would expect to be, given where we are in the fiscal year. I mean, I think that's probably how most of us tend to look at these reports. And if that's the case, then yeah, maybe we could just sort of train ourselves to just focus on that, on those last couple of columns.
AJ, I have a question for you as the chair of the
Yeah.
finance committee. Why are we spending 46.3% of our finance committee expense line of 298? We're way ahead of schedule there.
I have no idea. So what's the $138 that we spent?
I think it was for the finance committee state organization.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
The
a membership.
annual dues.
The dues.
Gotcha. All right, so
Oh, my gosh.
do you guys want me to forward through these pages and we can see if it kind of catches your eye, or that anybody have a question about?
I just got it today, so I'm gonna have to look through it, and it is a bite the bullet and learn how to look.
Yeah.
And I am a person that generally prints them out. I have all the other ones printed out before, because I look and I highlight, but I'll have to learn how to do this on computer. Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah,
Can somebody-
I also think that we should try to see whether there are other solutions to, the whole purpose of this process is to make data accessible to people that need to make decisions, and this is not going in that direction.
Yeah. Like, so I just highlighted this line here. Is this clear to anybody about kind of what this?
I think it's a total of that
I see. So it's the total for group two. Okay, I got you. I
Yeah,
got
so it's the
I
assessors
see.
department total.
you. Okay, so these bolded lines are the total sort of subtotal for a group of budget lines. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, oh,
All right. Well, I'm not sure there's going to be a whole lot of value in me scrolling through these pages right now since we're just getting, so,
But
I guess-
I'll check base with Gail. She's out until next Tuesday, but I'll check in with her and see if she can give us any different type, but because I pushed her for alternatives and this was it.
yeah.
This was the second one.
I guess one follow-up question for her to be, is there a custom report option? So like it may be that the software has only a couple of canned reports and we're seeing the, like the cleanest
Yeah.
of the two, but maybe if there's also an option that might require a little bit of time to get it set up, but a custom report that would then be available that she can run whenever she's sending these out. That would be good
And
to talk
time
about.
is money, so I'm sure it'll come at a hefty fee from the software company.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, you say there's a lot of towns, so most towns in Massachusetts
Yeah.
using this? So
Yeah.
I imagine there's gonna be other pushback, other places that they're
Yeah.
looking for other solutions. So maybe collaborating,
I can talk to other town administrators and see what they did. I've already talked to 3 and nobody raised this as an issue.
I just, for me,
Maybe
I'd like,
FERCog can make us a
Hmm.
custom program.
or maybe.
And you know
somebody-
how they price. They probably would be happy to, and it'll look much like this one because they're selling us an accountant at, 80,000 a year.
Wow.
Does anybody know how you can mark up? Like, I wouldn't mind using my computer and marking up this document. Can I mark up a PDF without having a special Adobe account? Can I do that?
I don't know how to do it, Bob.
I
Sorry.
I mean, you could highlight,
And then save it with the highlights?
Well,
uh,
well, Bob, if you have Adobe Write, and not just an Adobe Reader, you could go in and start fooling around with it.
I don't.
But yeah, but that, I don't think.
hey, we don't want Bob fooling around with the budget.
If I could just rewrite this document, no. You can't write on a PDF, right? Even unless you have Adobe software, right?
Yes, you have to have the Adobe Create, I think it's called. And that, and then you could take a document like this and recompose it if you wish.
Yeah, just trying to find a way to not have to print it. Put notes and marginalia and stuff like that. That's all.
Becky, I think all it needs to, if they just took out the numbered lines, like 100 in this, we're looking at page 7 here, 100, and if they just took those lines out, that would add it, because it's redundant information that's repeated in the following line. So what's the point? It just clogs up the works. If you could just, and there must be an option that would allow you to, not show any of those lines. I think, if we saw that, we might be a lot happier.
Tim, are you talking just about the 3 digits, 100?
100, and then it's followed by another 3 digit.
Those are the account numbers that the whole system is based on.
Yeah.
So
Well,
if you take those out, the whole thing falls apart.
No, but I mean, for display
report
purposes, for display purposes, I wouldn't be surprised. And I think, Jim Mullen can back me up on this. I mean, if you're creating a report that's generated out of a source document like this, then you could specify in the software, don't show those numbers. And that might make it, that I think would be a pretty easy thing to figure out or to do. But I'm not
Yeah,
a software engineer.
Yeah, I think either that or something like AJ suggested, where this software probably may have some canned reports.
Yeah, I think probably.
But the reports need to include those numbers. I
Yeah.
need them when anybody who is putting in a warrant or doing any kind of work to submit data to the accountant has to know what the reference numbers are, so she puts it in the right place. You can't just eliminate those numbers.
I think ideally, the report we want to see just collapses the 2 rows for every budget line, so that on one
Yeah,
row.
that, exactly.
We're
exactly.
seeing we're seeing the account number, but we're also getting the account description, and then the allocation and how much has been spent.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. So I guess, okay, so, Becky said she's gonna have a follow-up
Yeah,
conversation with
yeah.
Gail. We'll see what's possible.
And
If
his radar.
everybody could just sort of plow through and spend a little time reviewing this before our next meeting, to see if they have actually any questions about
The alarms.
spending on any of these lines. Okay. All right, so I think that's pretty much it. Are there committee reports that anyone needs to share? Bob?
I wanted to ask Becky a question about the school roof. I just, for an update,
Okay.
what's going on with that?
Sure.
The contract was signed by the select board and they're getting us on their schedule for a meeting.
That's for Gail.
Yeah, for Gale Associates.
Great, excellent.
Any committee reports? Doesn't sound like it. We talked about guardrails. Okay, school hasn't met. Okay. So we've got a meeting on the schedule for November 15th. It's our first budget review. Hopefully we'll have budgets by around this time next week from at least those 2 departments. I'll start to populate that Google Drive with whatever budget documents have been collected to date. Is there anything else that folks needed to check in on, or any questions? All right, Bob?
I just want to say, I hope that we can discuss school choice. Susie, I did talk to Dan Hayes for quite a while, and we did exchange views, and information was sent to me from him about what discussions the school committee's been having. So I hope we have an opportunity to discuss that in a future meeting. Hopefully, I don't know if we'll be too busy on the 15th, but sometime before the school submits its preliminary draft budget.
All right, so why don't I'll put it on the agenda for the 15th, and worst case scenario, if we're, because police and worst case scenario, if we have to table it to the next meeting. That's fine.
6:30 on the 15th is our meeting.
Yep. I think we've kind of shifted to 6:30 as a permanent thing now. So
Great.
hopefully that works for everybody. Okay. All right. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
All right, I'll second that. Melody's gone, so that's
Bob Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, aye.
Okay.
You have it.
Thank you.
AJ,
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, AJ.
Sorry, Bob, did you say something?
Yankees, what happened?
Oh, it fell apart. That's what happened.
Rubbing it in.
They're on vacation now, okay?
Yeah. All right.
Well,
Thanks
good night, all.
thanks now you put me in a bad mood, Bob.
All right.
All right, take care.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Glad to have you back, Jim.